Dispatch podcast presented by Freight School Playbook. I am your host, Blythe Brumleve, and today I am joined by Rob Light with CarrierSource.io. It is a program to help with prospecting for carriers based on authentic reviews from brokers, and they package those reviews alongside FMCSA, safety compliance, and insurance information. Now, Rob, we got connected just a couple weeks ago, just sort of met through LinkedIn, which is sort of speaks to the power of LinkedIn. But I had posted something about getting reviews from your customers and how important they can be in your marketing efforts. And so that's how we kind of got connected. And so for people who are new to CarrierSource, sort of give us the rundown of what your platform provides.
Sure. So you kind of touched on it with the initial elevator pitch, right? We aim to be a prospecting tool for brokers to find the best carriers to move their freight. There's so much safety and compliance information out there. It can be a little dicey at times, right? And it gives you an overview of who's passing their safety inspections, but it's not really telling you who is a good carrier. At the same time, there's nothing positive out there for carriers right now, right? There are Freight Guard reports or TIA watchdog reports for kind of the serious offenders, but there's no testimonial site or review site or really any place for carriers to promote their good work, right? So many carriers do good work, and we believe that they deserve to have some recognition there. And so the thought was, by providing CarrierSource, which would be an open platform to go on and read reviews, that carriers can better promote the great work that they do. You know, no one's perfect. You know, a carrier is going to have an issue here or there, and that's okay. And so we just want to make sure that the one bad experience isn't outweighing the 10 great experiences that they're providing customers and brokers on top of that.
Now, you're sort of new to, self-admittedly, you're new to the freight space, and you spent quite a bit of time studying the industry. Why was this the first problem that you wanted to solve?
Well, my background is reviews. I worked at a company called G2 for 5 years, and it's a software review website. And so I sat down with a couple of friends who were in the industry, and we were talking one day about the concept of reviews and how it really didn't exist in freight at all. And so we began kind of brainstorming, and the wheels began spinning that carriers really could benefit from having reviews out there. And so, one thing led to another, and we had to figure out, how do we get brokers and shippers engaged, right? And that's where kind of the prospecting aspect came about. But we really just felt that, carriers, they deserve a voice, and right now they don't have one. And so it was just kind of glaring to us after a certain, the light bulb clicks, and all of a sudden we realized, man, that could be really useful to a carrier.
Now, you mentioned that you guys pull in reviews from around, well, I guess you should clarify this for me. You're pulling in reviews, or is it just user submitted?
It's all user submitted. So, we take the stance of, we are unbiased. We don't want to manipulate the data in any sort of way. This is entirely reviews from brokers and shippers that can submit them. It's entirely submitted through our platform. We don't pull in from anywhere else. We do pull in the FMCSA safety and compliance and insurance information on a daily basis. We make sure we keep that up to date for the prospecting side. But for the reviews, it's entirely those that have come in and submitted them through CarrierSource.
So it's not like an aggregate that pulls in from like Google or Facebook or something like that?
Correct. Yeah, it's kind of a completely separate platform. But we think that there should be some extra steps to submitting those reviews. And so, in order to submit a review, you have to sign up. We track a broker's MC number. We make sure that they're a legit broker, right? And that the reviews, as you mentioned at the very beginning, are authentic. We want honest, truthful reviews. So we do verify every user that signs up before they submit a review. And even when they go through and click submit at the end of that review, we actually read every review. A real human reads the review, which I think is a little bit different. But
Right.
we want to make sure that the review is useful, that it abides by our guidelines, and that it's truthful. So we do a little background check. We make sure that it's authentic.
And so what happens if, say, because I used to actually handle the Google reviews for a company that I used to work at in their office when I did all of their marketing, and we would get some reviews from certain customers and they weren't necessarily truthful when they were submitting the reviews. They were a little angry at the time that they were submitting the review. So how do you sort of negate the fact of I guess a business dispute sort of turning into, well, I'm going to leave that carrier a bad review now because they messed me up big time?
Yeah, and so kind of going back to our original thoughts, right? Most of the reviews out there right now are negative because it is kind of just somebody who's heated in the moment, right? And so we hope that the kind of 24-hour, 48-hour publishing period will help kind of ease that person a little bit, right? A day later, it's not such a big deal anymore. But if there ever is a dispute, we'll act as a middleman. If a carrier wants to report a review, we'll go to the broker and say, okay, you actually worked with this carrier, right? You have anything to prove? A screenshot of a correspondence, or a rate confirmation would be amazing, but that's probably not in the cards. But just some sort of proof that you actually worked with this carrier. But then we kind of, our approach is we tell carriers it's a customer service opportunity. If you can respond publicly to a negative experience that a broker had in a positive way, right? Not necessarily fighting back and forth via a review platform.
Which does happen.
Right. Which does happen a lot, I know. And so, but if you can respond in a positive way, it shows all other potential customers and brokers that you care about the service that you provide. And so if you can come on and take the high road in that situation, respond in a positive manner, it can really change the entire experience for both that broker and any future brokers or shippers that come on and view your profile.
Now, whenever I would assume that, say that hypothetically this negative review is published, then the carrier can go in and they can publicly respond, and all of that conversation is viewable to anyone. Is that correct?
That's correct. We only allow for one response in terms of a back and forth. We don't need a full forum
right.
of disputes. But
back and forth. Check out my Twitter for more information.
Exactly. So we allow for one response, and yes, a carrier can come in, and actually that's kind of the other side to this that we haven't quite touched on yet. But a carrier can come in and engage with Carrier Source, and they can claim their profile page, so they can do some upgrading as well, in terms of making sure their information is correct when brokers and shippers are trying to contact them. Make sure all that information is square. They can upload types of equipment that they have, types of shipments that they fill, preferred lanes that they run, all that good stuff. That's helpful for them to grow their business. But then at the same time, we do offer a portal on the back end for them to respond to any reviews.
Now, that sort of leads me into my next question: is how are you compiling all of the carrier information? Is it like an API data pool? Is it manual? I would hope it's not manual entry on a daily basis. I sort of break down what that process looks like, because there's new carriers entering the market on a daily basis. So how do you control that sort of information flow?
So I wish it was an API or something a little bit more automated. We've got a great developer who has built us, a system to get it as automated as we think we can, but we pull it directly from the DOT and the FMCSA. So every morning we're uploading any new carriers, any updates to any insurance information, authority statuses. So, we're constantly adding new carriers to the site, and at the same time, pulling old or inactive carriers out of the search. So if you're looking for a carrier, you don't want to find somebody who's no longer active.
And so with a lot of brokers, when they're starting to use the platform, what sort of do you have any, I guess, common challenges that they run into, any kind of like a common roadblocks that they run into with using the platform that you guys you maybe have on your roadmap in order to fix or to address in the future? What are some of the I guess the training hurdles that brokers have to get over when they first start using the platform?
So we've built it to be rather intuitive. I think it's pretty straightforward. If they've ever kind of prospect on another carrier database, I think they'll get the gist pretty quickly. But I think something that we've received in terms of feedback and that we're actively adding to the roadmap down the line is we provide every broker with what we call the broker dashboard, and it allows them to save any carriers that they come across or even potentially any carriers that fall in their name that they want to keep any notes on. And we kind of have really high hopes for what that broker dashboard can be, particularly for carrier reps at small and mid-sized brokerages, right? The big boys, they all have their own internal systems and decades worth of notes and all that good stuff. But the small and mid-sized brokerages, the individual reps can save all their information within Carrier Source and keep their carriers organized in a nice manner. But we really believe that broker dashboard can be a really valuable tool in terms of saving specific lists for lanes that carriers run, even providing some intelligent features like what's a hot lane that day, who's a hot carrier that's getting a whole bunch of reviews that maybe you want to look into. And being able to search through all that, we think could be really valuable down the road. So,
and now that you touch on that, do you have, I guess, any plans or any integration capabilities with TMS providers, maybe making that process a little bit simpler for brokers who are prospecting?
Yeah, that's something else that's on our roadmap. We believe that there's huge opportunity for partnerships with TMS systems, CRM systems in the same sense. But then as well, I think, we don't need to stop there. I think load boards could benefit from, licensing the carrier source score, even if it's as simple as that, right? Just to be able to see who's good and who's bad wherever brokers and shippers are finding carriers, we think is a huge potential.
Now, we all know that, reviews are incredibly important, and a big company like Amazon has a massive issue with reviews that are not really authentic. How can you convey to, I guess, the outside audience or to the potential brokers that are searching your platform that, hey, these are verified reviews from verified interactions? Sort of walk us through, I guess, that process.
It's hard, and you want to build trust as best you can, right? The reviews and the platform itself are only as good as the trust that we can build with the users. And so kind of as I touched on, we try to explain and convey that we are analyzing every single one of these reviews that come in. We do the quick little background check on the broker, make sure they're a real person, that they exist. And we read through it. And I think that if we have useful reviews, I think that builds trust in itself just as much as the concept of being verified. I think, if someone wants to leave a review anonymously, we literally say review from a verified broker from whatever state they're in. So verified is important to us, but the reviews themselves, I think, can build that trust. If you're able to understand who that carrier is, what type of communication do they have? Are they providing you, consistent electronic tracking? Are they empty? Is there no capacity by the afternoon? There's tons of things that somebody could touch on. But then the last aspect of that is we also do provide the option for reviewers to submit a screenshot, whether that's just simply within their TMS showing that they, did indeed book that carrier, right, or an email correspondence back and forth, or a redacted rate confirmation, whatever they want to do to prove it. We do leave that as an optional question in the reviews. And when we do get a screenshot, we signify that on the front end to say that this reviewer verified with a screenshot.
That's good. That's good to know, because I think that's anytime I watched a CNBC report that talked about the massive Amazon review problem, and now it has me questioning any review that I see online. So having that little extra tab that says, verified review really helps sort of, I guess, just peace of mind overall. But on the flip side, say if a carrier is really proud of their rating that's on Carrier Source, is there a way for them to take that rating and promote it to their social channels, their website, anything like that?
Yeah, moving forward, that's going to be part of our upgraded package for carriers to be able to license their reviews, whether they want to use them as testimonials on their own website.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think down the road, best carriers in Chicago, best carriers in Jacksonville. We can start to provide some of these lists to them and awards and badges that they can continue to promote. I saw the other day that Four Kites and Project 44 have started to give out badges for their gold tier carriers and things like that. I think that's an amazing way to promote yourself. But to license the score, license the reviews, use it in any marketing collateral that you want. I know marketers try so hard for testimonials, and because they are very powerful. And so hopefully we can make that easy on those marketing departments as well.
Now, you kind of touched on a little bit of the product roadmap of what you guys have planned. Now, when I was doing my demo, I noticed that there were some search parameters in there, for lanes and equipment and things like that. Do you have plans to add any additional search parameters in there?
Yeah, definitely. So you touched on two of them. Types of equipment we feel is really important. So many reps gave that feedback that if they could search by reefer or dry van, that it would be more impactful to them than searching by type of commodity that the DOT provides to us and provides to everybody else. So it's a little bit easier to search by that for now. But down the road, definitely type of equipment. Lanes, as we crowdsource more and more exact lanes, we believe that, not just a radius search for pickup, but pickup and drop-off locations and try to be as accurate as possible with that. But we've been taking feedback now. We ran a closed beta program with a handful of reps, and they provided so much feedback to us in terms of what filters would be useful to them. Because at the end of the day, we just want to make it as easy as possible for them to get the most specific list that's useful to them when they're prospecting carriers.
Very true. And also during my demo, I noticed a little area for a sponsored carrier. And you mentioned earlier about how, some of the bigger carriers, they already have their budgets marketing wise, yada, yada. Some of the smaller carriers that are looking to get their name out there, I thought that might be useful for them to help in that process. Sort of break down, I guess, what that program will look like when it fully launches.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to wrap that into the same upgraded carrier package. We call it sponsored content. We don't want any advertising on the site. Every website talks about advertising at some point, but we don't want to add any outside advertising. But we do think that it could be useful for carriers to promote themselves within the platform.
Absolutely.
And so, we've discussed the idea of sponsored content on like non-upgraded carrier profiles. If you have a competitor and you're trying to promote yourself, head to head against a handful of them, right? That's one way to do it. We've talked about down the road as well, kind of within the searches themselves, paid placement.
Sure.
We're not quite there yet, but something that we've kind of toyed with the idea of, which could be more appealing to some of those larger carriers who might just say, all right, I can come and first or second on the search results, all right, I'll do
Right. I
that,
mean,
you know?
they're probably paying for that already on Google, so why wouldn't they pay for it on a site like yourself? So
Exactly.
how much you mentioned in our breakdown before this call that you spent a considerable amount of time doing research, and especially on the Freightwaves channel. Now, when you were doing that research, was there any topic in particular? It doesn't have to be related to carrier source, but there was any topic in particular that sort of stood out to you as, wow, I didn't know that as an outsider coming into the freight industry?
I think a lot of things jumped out to me. It's very, you know, I know that you've done it based on your background, but switching industries is like going back to school, right? You have to immerse yourself and really learn so much. That so many things surprised me. But I think I know that I've harped on it already, but the lack of transparency in terms of in all aspects of freight, really. And I know there's, you know, people like Project 44 and Four Kites and all these ELDs are helping transparency on the actual load itself, but transparency into the carriers and the brokerages. I come from software where everything is trying, you know, every company is trying to be as transparent as possible. They're putting their pricing out there, right? They're putting their executive team out there. They're doing whatever they can to almost humanize themselves in a certain way.
Sure, because even like a lot of the software is open source in other industries, and this one it's a little tougher in that regard.
Exactly. And so I think kind of the lack of transparency was surprising to me a little bit, but hopefully carrier sorts can help with a little bit of that. And I think, you know, as more and more electronic tracking becomes bigger, and as really, I think marketing kind of gains steam within the industry, I think that trend will change a little bit.
Now, you mentioned that the carrier source, that fixing that problem within the industry was the top priority. Are there any other problems within the industry that you're hoping maybe you could tackle down the road or next?
You know, we've been so focused. We kind of have a game plan, right? And first it was provide value to the shippers and brokers so that we can in turn provide better value to the carriers. That I've kind of been tunnel visioned, and we've all kind of been tunnel visioned in terms of what we think we can impact directly. One thing I think would be really cool, and I know happens in a lot of other industries, and I touched on it a little bit, but the idea of the awards, I think that providing, you know, the best carriers with some level of bigger recognition than they're getting now, and again, based entirely on shipper and broker reviews, could be really fun and really interesting, and everybody loves being awarded. So
Absolutely.
that was something else we've been thinking about, but yeah, we've kind of been tunnel visioned in terms of problem solving.
That's a good thing to do, because a lot of people will, you know, it's the shiny object syndrome, which I have been guilty of in the past. And, you know, once you finish one project, it's moving on to the next one, and you haven't really finished that first project yet.
Yeah, we like to talk long term when in reality we our execution is very short-sighted.
So I guess from where are you hoping that carrier source is going to be a year from now versus 5 years from now?
So a year from now, I'm hoping we're growing like crazy. I hope that we're providing good value to both, you know, the shipper and broker side as well as the carrier side. I think that 5 years down the line, I hope we are the go-to resource for finding carriers, and that we are the go-to, you know, brand marketing solution for carriers, and that marketing picks up some steam, and that you know, carriers begin to realize that by having a wealth of reviews and information on you that's directly accessible to shippers and brokers can grow their business, right? And we're all looking to grow, and I think that if we can convince the carrier side of that mindset, that but there's a lot of potential for 5 years down the road.
Well, we'll kind of touch on that. How are you getting the carriers in order to actively engage with the program? I imagine with brokers, it's the sell is pretty easy, but how are carriers getting involved proactively with the software? Are they sending it out to their drivers and telling them, hey, this is the platform you need to pay attention to, or sort of walk us through, I guess, what the sell is for carriers themselves to be part of the platform?
Yeah, absolutely. And right now the pitch to brokers and shippers is pretty easy because it's free for shippers and brokers, right? And we intend to keep it that way. And the sell to carriers is the same sort of freemium model. It's free for them to come in and engage. They can claim their profile. They can update their information, make sure it's accurate. They can even write a quick bio about themselves to explain who they are, what lanes they run, et cetera. But then the pitch is growth, right? There's a huge portion of carriers that are looking to move from 10 trucks to 30 trucks and from 30 trucks to 100 trucks, and that are really trying to grow. And I think at that point, that's where this sort of direct brand marketing is really important. And so, we play this game sometimes, but you put two profiles next to each other, right? One has been upgraded. It's got a logo. It's got a pretty banner. It's got flushed out information. And then, a carrier next to it that's the same size, maybe in the same location or nearby, that has a blank profile. If you're a shipper or a broker, your natural inclination is to go with the upgraded and flushed out profile.
Absolutely.
So we think that there's a range of ways to engage, but again, at its core, if you're just looking to get your correct contact information out there to make sure you're getting the right calls, that's completely free to carriers.
All right. Well, perfect. Well, if you're a carrier or broker, where can people find more information and follow the Carrier Source platform?
Yeah, so carriersource.io, it's free to come in and sign up. We offer two different sign-up avenues. So if you're a broker, you can come in. We haven't quite yet added shipper. It's a little bit more nuanced, but right now brokers and carriers can come in and sign up for free.
Well, that's cool. I appreciate your time today, Rob. I think that Carrier Source is actively out there trying to make testimonials more of a regular thing in a world where we can kind of only rely on Google and Facebook for that, and nobody really wants that anymore. So thank you again for your time today. And for more information on Rob and his work with Carrier Source, be sure to check out carriersource.io. And thank you again. This was great.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.